What dark family secret were you let in on once you were old enough? Not super dark or super secret, but when I had to do a project on my family tree in elementary school, one of the questions was, when did your family immigrate to America and why? For one of my great-grandfathers, my grandma told me life was very hard back in his country, and it was getting dangerous to stay there, and for a long time I thought, yeah, I can see that. It was probably hard for a teenager living in Poland with World War II right around the corner. And I'm sure it was. But it turns out it's even harder and more dangerous when you're a teenager who has slept with a married woman and then accidentally unalived her husband when he confronted you. I can see why she didn't want me to put that on my elementary school project. My dad secretly had a vasectomy after I was born, after my mom lying to him about taking birth control resulted in my birth. Our family is great at communication and conflict resolution. My great-grandmother, who I called Nan, had 3 children born in the 1930s. The youngest was my grandfather. Turns out the older 2 were her sister's kids but were the product of incest. We aren't sure who the father is because the name repeats in the family. Could be her brother, cousin, or uncle. Also, my Nan's husband wasn't the father of my grandfather. She told my uncle that it was someone who rented a room from them. There's a lot of pictures of her, my grandfather, and this guy that looked like family photos even though she was married. We couldn't find any link to this guy's family on Ancestry. Finally found a connection to a different man who was married and moved around the East Coast and was staying nearby around the time my grandfather was conceived. Nan also let her husband die. He was having a heart attack and she wouldn't call an ambulance. By time he did get help, it was too late. Lovely lady. Not exactly dark, but I found out my father wrote adult films novels under a pen name to make ends meet when I was a baby. I've been trying to find one ever since. My great-aunt's husband unalived his first wife, then unalived her. They lived in Puerto Rico and he fled to NYC so my great-uncles wouldn't unalive him. They found out where he was, came here, unalived him, and went home. When I turned 21, my grandfather told me a story about his older brother that I had never heard. My great-uncle was a big boozer for most of his life. He passed at 92 and by then had switched from liquor to beer and wine. He also cut down to 1 pack of cigarettes a day instead of 2 after he had half a lung removed. Pap and my uncle grew up on a farm in the 30s and 40s. Mostly the family ran the farm by themselves, but from time to time they would hire drifters on as farmhands. In 1950, my uncle and one of the farmhands were out drinking and they were driving back to the farm in my uncle's convertible. My uncle was the one driving and he misjudged a turn that had a steep bank on the right side. He ran the car up the embankment, which was steep enough to flip it. My uncle was thrown from the car, but the farmhand he was drinking with was only halfway out of the car when it landed. Pap said he was severed clean into 2 pieces. Because the farmhand was just a drifter without any family to make much fuss and because the Korean War had just started, my uncle was able to enlist and avoid any criminal charges. He was in Korea until the end of the war. That was the only time I've ever heard that story told, and although I would never be someone who has more than a few drinks before getting behind the wheel, it's something that definitely sticks in my mind.